Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm sharing my recipe and tutorial for making homemade marshmallow fondant. I love making marshmallow fondant because I can use it for all kinds of things and it's very inexpensive to make. I need 2 pounds of powdered sugar, 20 ounces of marshmallows, and 3 tablespoons of water. Using a kitchen scale, weigh out 2 pounds of powdered sugar, also known as confectioner's sugar or icing sugar. Typically each bag is about 2 pounds, but sometimes I've found I'll need to add a little bit more, and it's also okay to go over the 2 pounds by a little bit because when kneading it you will lose a bit. Set the sugar aside and in a separate bowl we'll weigh out 20 ounces of marshmallows. I've used mini marshmallows, standard marshmallows, and jumbo marshmallows, and they all seem to work just fine for this. Here the scale reads 1 pound 4 ounces, which is 20 ounces. Then we'll add 3 tablespoons of water to the marshmallow bowl. This mixture goes into the microwave for 1 minute, then we'll take it out and stir. Then we'll pop it back in the microwave for 30-second increments and stir in between each time to make sure all the heat is spread evenly. What we're looking for with the marshmallow and water mixture is that it's totally smooth and you can't see any defined lumps of marshmallows. It should look like that marshmallow cream or fluff you can buy in a jar. And just be aware the marshmallow mixture will be hot, so be careful of getting it on your skin. Here is the consistency we're looking for. And we'll start adding our powdered sugar a little bit at a time. Stir to combine each time. Again, the marshmallows are still very hot, so be careful. Continue to add powdered sugar and stir until it's not possible to stir anymore in the bowl. Once we get more like a dough consistency like this and it's difficult to stir, we'll clean off our surface and grease it well with some shortening. You'll also want to grease your fingers and hands very well with shortening too, as the fondant is sticky at first. Scoop or pour the fondant out onto your greased surface and start to knead. Continue to add powdered sugar in a little bit at a time and knead until it's combined. Marshmallow should be a little more cooled down now with the powdered sugar added, so it'll be easier to touch. Continue to mix and knead the powdered sugar into the fondant mixture with your hands until it's all absorbed. I'm using a fondant mat here, but you can certainly use your counter or table, just make sure it's greased well. And of course I washed my hands very well before doing this. If you prefer to use gloves, you can certainly do that, but you'll want to also grease the gloves with shortening as well, because it will stick to gloves too. With time you'll start to notice the fondant smoothing out and absorbing all the remaining powdered sugar on your surface. And here's what it looks like. To store it, I cover it with shortening. It helps prevent it from drying out. And then I wrap it tightly in plastic wrap and store this in an airtight container. I keep this container at room temperature, covered out of the sun. Sunlight doesn't matter too much when it's just this white fondant here, but once it's colored, you'll want to keep it out of the sun to avoid color fade. Fondant colors very easily. You'll want to use a gel-based formula, not a water-based. I like this liquid gel. Grease your hands with a little bit of shortening and then just add color and knead it in. Add more as desired. You can actually get very vivid, very deep colors in fondant easily. If you want your entire batch of fondant to be a single color, you can add that color right after you finish making it, but I typically need lots of different colors from each batch, so I color them as needed. Different ways to use fondant here. You can roll it out with a rolling pin and use cutters and embossers to make different shapes and designs. I like to use alphabet embossers to get messages and names on cakes more easily. You can marble colors of fondant together by kneading together a few different colors of fondant and just not mixing the entire way so you can see ribbons of color. You can use edible paints and dusts to give it more color. I also like to use fondant in silicone molds like this mermaid tail, for example. Make sure you coat the mold with shortening. Get the fondant to release easily. You can add a toothpick and let the fondant dry overnight to make a hardened topper. Here's another example of a silicone mold with fondant. Fondant pieces attached to one another with just a little brush of water. Also use fondant to sculpt animals, people, items, lots of different things. Just imagine it like an edible Play-Doh. I'm using it here to make a sculpted dragon for a Chinese New Year cake. You can also knead in more powdered sugar or Tylose powder to stiffen the consistency for sculpting. If you want your fondant pieces to dry hard and maintain their shape, you can store it at room temperature open to air, again out of sunlight. If you'd like your fondant pieces to maintain their shape but continue to be flexible and not dry harden all the way, you can store them at room temperature in an airtight container. Another way to use fondant is to use an extruding tool like this. It comes with different attachments to make ribbons, noodles, ropes, all kinds of shapes much more easily. Thank you so much for watching. Have fun with your fondants!